Hey, deserving listeners, Married at First Sight, Season 12, Chris and Paige. Let's react to it. I'm going to react to it. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's see if anything interesting comes out of my face.
Child with someone in separate homes. Like that has, come across my mind.
So in like what regard? Like you would potentially want to get back with her?
That thought has crossed my mind.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think anyone in Chris's position would consider that at the very least. The situation is such he just met Paige 5 days ago, and he's even said that he's not attracted to her and doesn't want to be with her, I think. And then he finds out that with his ex he has a child. And I think a lot of people in Chris's position would think, maybe I should go back with her so that we can raise the kid together. It's a tough situation, and of course, it's going to hurt Paige's feelings, which makes sense. It's just a difficult situation all the way around.
To what level of degree? Like y'all been talking about it?
That was a great question that Paige had. I think a lot of people that I react to would have assumed what Chris meant by that. Chris is like, well, to be honest, I have been thinking about maybe getting back together with her. I think a lot of people in Paige's position would say, well, that's it, and they'd storm out and they'd get hurt by it. Instead of being differentiating, going like, well, it's normal for him to think that, and to what degree are we talking? Are we talking like a 5% thing or a 95% thing? And that's what she asked. She asked a follow-up question of, okay, to what degree? It's a wonderful question. It's very important information to know, and it gives an opportunity to really understand what Chris is going through and how he's feeling. Because if it's a 5% thing, then Paige can be like, oh, okay. But if it's a 95% thing, then she can say, oh, okay.
I still love her. But loving somebody doesn't mean that you should be with them. And that's what, I'm saying, like I've been kind of just processing and stuff. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it makes total sense. He still has feelings for her. The relationship ended not that long ago. Or did it ever really end is one of the questions, because the relationship ended, but they continued to get together intimately. So if he hadn't gone on the show, would they have gotten back together anyway? But at any rate, he is, just thinking about it. He's like, I still love her. She's going to have a kid. And probably in his mind, he wouldn't necessarily say this, but I don't even know this person, this Paige person. I'm not attracted to her. So what am I doing here? It makes sense. It's an unfortunate situation for sure. And I commend the two of them for being able to talk about it in this way. It's not often that we see a conversation like this with this much difficulty being discussed in a calm and mature way, in a way that is reflective of, I think, the reality of the situation. I feel bad for Paige, though.
If, I'm withholding information or I'm just trying to do, something behind your back, because it's not the case. This is the first time we've talked about it, and that happened 3-4 days ago when I told you that. So we're having a conversation now, and I'm telling you that, yes, those conversations were had.
So I'll commend Chris for being honest about that. He could have lied about that. We've seen other cast members on these shows lie about such things. So I commend his honesty. Paige makes a good point. I don't know if I showed it, but she's saying, look, you vowed to be with me. And I guess when I'm watching this show, I think of it as, yeah, they're married, but they're not really married until there's the commitment day a few months down the line. But for some of them, they consider themselves, obviously, to be married. And for a lot of people, marriage means forever, particularly when you consider religion involved, where you vow to your higher power that you will never leave this person. And it's a big deal. And so for Paige, she is understandably upset. She's like, I thought we made a vow, and yes, you have a child with another person, but we made the vow, and so that's it. That's done. So it makes sense that she's upset.
What do you say?
He's trying to get back with his ex.
Oh my gosh.
He said, I'm still in love with my ex. Like, all this like you didn't even give us a chance.
Yeah, that's rough. So we're hearing from Paige that Chris tried to get back together with his ex, and maybe he's breaking up with Paige. I suspect that they don't break up, otherwise there wouldn't be enough material for y'all to want me to watch. So I'm guessing they continue it to some degree beyond this point. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I'm guessing there's a lot of different opinions about this. For some people, I'm guessing a lot of people are on Paige's side. I'm guessing there's a lot of Team Paige as opposed to Team Chris. But I will say that it's just a tough situation for everybody. And how any of us would react in a situation like that. You are in love, you're in a volatile relationship, you break up kind of, and then you're out of desperation, you go on the show to maybe meet someone and move on with your life. You meet them, you're not incredibly attracted to them. You find out the love of your life is now pregnant, and you think, well, what's the honorable thing to do here? On one hand, I should be there for my child. On the other hand, I should be there for my wife. He also said something, I don't know if I included it, that he said he didn't want any other man raising his child. And on one level, you know, it's to some extent understandable. You don't want some random person influencing your child. On another level, it can be something that some men will engage in that line of thinking because of masculinity, toxic masculinity maybe, of no other man is going to invade my space and I must aggressively, you know, keep my fence up. But, you know, it's a lot of people are like that in terms of they want to be there for their kid. He wants to be there for his kid, and that's a good quality that Chris, I think, is exhibiting. So it's a tough situation. I wonder how many people side with at least this aspect of what Chris is doing. Now, and let me know in the comments, but how did Chris do it is the thing. If Chris really was, what would I do if I was in Chris's? What I would do is I would say, look, I'm off the show because this is bigger than what's happening here. So I would drop out of the show and just take the consequences. And then I wouldn't be with either for a while. I would just say, look, I need time to think. Paige, I am so sorry. If you want to leave me because of this, it's your right to do so, but I am so sorry. I'm going to go back home, be with my parents. I have a lot of thinking to do. I'm not going to make any choice. I'm still married to you, but I have so much on my mind. I can't figure out what I need to do here, and I'm just so sorry. But what it sounds like Chris did is he just tried to get back together with her and then told Paige about it, which could really be a betrayal to her, right? But, you know, I think that the situation it's just a tough situation.
He wants to move forward and get a divorce. He already spoke to like a divorce attorney and everything. Like, I cannot believe this at all.
So is he coming to Pastor Kavanaugh?
I really don't know.
So I don't understand why this is so surprising. The show seems to treat the marriage as if it's some sure thing, but most of the people on the show don't last. I did a whole analysis of all the couples for all the seasons, and we don't really know what the date is going to be because the show's only been on the air for something like 7 years, 8 years or something, and divorces, it sometimes takes a while for them to take hold. So I suspect that in 10 years, the past seasons, a minority of couples will still be together, highlighting the fact that it's incredibly difficult to predict who will be attracted to each other and who will stay together. This show and the experts claim they have some sort of system, but no system exists. And I've said this before, and I did a whole deep dive on this. Understand that scientists have looked into this many, many times, trying to predict who would be attracted to each other and who would stay together. Because if you had such an algorithm or such a way of predicting that in people based on personality tests or compatibility tests, then you would be a trillionaire, because it would be a wonderful tool that would eliminate divorce, it would eliminate breakups, it would eliminate heartache. But we don't have that. Humans are too weird. Humans are too particular. You just can't really predict human behavior, let alone whether or not people will be attracted to each other and whether or not they'll stay together. There's too many other factors. The way they treat each other. You can't predict how they're going to treat each other. You can't predict if they're really going to be attracted to each other. You know, attraction can be a very particular thing sometimes. Anyway, so the show seems to predict that, and then the contestants or the cast members seem to believe in that. They're like, well, they matched us up for a reason. And I'm always thinking, they matched you up based on reasons that they had, but there's no science behind that reason. And it bothers me because some of the individuals, the experts, are scientists, or at least science-oriented, and should know better than to claim that they have some sort of scientific, reliable, valid way of matching these people up. They're guessing, which is fine if they just said that. If the experts said, you know what, we're just using our own intuition, we're just trying to take a guess. But instead they promote it as if there's some kind of scientific method. And even I watched it in season 10, they showed a little bit of the quote unquote method, and it just seemed not very reliable or valid. You know, Pepper Swartz just goes into the apartments and looks around, and just by looking at someone's apartment, you can tell if someone's going to be compatible with someone else. Not likely. So anyway, my point is that when the people on the show get up in arms about divorce being discussed, I am not surprised, because putting aside the marriage thing, they were matched up on a blind date by people that barely knew either one of them. And after a few days, and especially since your ex is now pregnant with your child, you are thinking about, well, say Chris went on a blind date with someone 5 days ago and wasn't really into her, and then found out that his ex-girlfriend is now pregnant. I think a lot of people would say Chris should go back, or at least should consider to go back with that person. But because it's marriage, it somehow tips the scales in this other direction, where he's a bad guy if he's considering doing that. Now, the way he's doing it, you could call him out on, as I've been saying. He is perhaps not being very kind or very respectful or very systematic in his way of evaluating what the better action is, and harmful to Paige. Absolutely. You could criticize him for that. I criticize him for that, I think. We don't really know what's happened, but I find that if I were Paige or Paige's friend, I would say, well, I get that, you're hurt for sure, and I'm here for you, but I think under the circumstances, it doesn't really surprise me that much, given what's happening. But I don't know. Am I seeing it wrong? Because I have a feeling that a lot of people are on Paige's side. And the other thing that I'll point out is that the show seems extremely interested in forcing people together. The other season I watched, when couples like, was it Mindy and Zach, from the beginning I was thinking, and I didn't know, of course, but I was suspecting like they should just break up day one, because Zach was like, I'm not into this person. And lo and behold, they didn't stay together. And lo and behold, they harmed each other the whole season. So Zach should have looked at Mindy and said, I'm not attracted, she's not my type, and he's just said, I'm out. In the same way you would do on a blind date, which is essentially what this is, right? But the way the show was oriented, the experts kept pressuring Zach and Mindy to be together. There's this pressure that they put on them, I think. I don't know, but if I were, I don't know who the experts are this season, but in season 10, one of them was a marriage and family therapist like me. And if I was working with a client in a situation, I'd say, what do you want? And if they said, I want a divorce, then I'd say, okay, let's go for it. But it's not my business to try to convince someone to stay in a marriage that they don't want to be in, particularly when it doesn't look very optimistic, like the Mindy and Zach situation. But anyway, so I'm predicting I'm going to get annoyed with the way that the show approaches the situation, and the way the experts will try to pressure and spin the situation such that they'll pressure Chris back in. Because there's a risk that if you pressure Chris into the relationship against his will, you essentially use peer pressure or social pressure to push him back. he might have 1 foot in, 1 foot out the entire time, instead of just letting people do what they're going to do and let Paige find someone who actually wants to be with her, that kind of thing. Anyway, but who knows? Maybe Chris and Paige, they ride off into the sunset happily ever after in the end. I don't know. Let's watch.
Him?
Also discussing any type of intimacy with this man. That. No. I am done. Period. I'm done with this bull. All that mother dramatic ass you done dragged me through.
Right. So that makes sense to me, Paige. She's like, after all the drama because all the while during the honeymoon, Paige was being extremely gracious and very kind and very mature and almost motherly to him and really caring and patient with him while he was having occasional, emotional issues. Some, I think, totally justified, some seemingly trauma that's being triggered, who knows. And right now she's like, I had sex with that guy and I put up with him. I was patient. I rolled over, I bent over backwards to try to make things right with him. I was constantly working and not saying what was on my mind, and I was suppressing my anger for the betterment of the relationship. And now, boom, he just abandons me and he's back with his ex. Like, this is upsetting, which completely makes sense to me.
You, that bitch, will have this conversation with Pastor Cal. I'll air out all his He's done with this.
Yeah, I just feel terrible for Paige. One of the aspects of watching this show is the pain of watching someone get rejected. Like with the Zach, I always just think of the Zach and Mindy. The Mindy was really into Zach. She in the beginning, she's just like, oh, he's so beautiful, and I just really like him. And she thought he was smart in the beginning, which was a little interesting. But she in the first few days, maybe weeks, she was really into him, and she's just trying to make it work and doing everything she can. And Zach was just not responding at all, but giving all these like confusing answers. And it's hard to watch. It's hard to watch someone, beat their head up against the wall, right? And get nowhere, and to get hurt like that. It's hard to watch. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.